I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to show up this evening and spend a little bit of time here in this live stream with us. We have a great community here and it's growing all the time. And we're so glad that you're able to join in. Now, whether you're able to join in this with the live stream or if you watch it in the rerun, I want to let you know that it is greatly, greatly appreciated. And I want to thank you guys so much for doing so. Yeah, welcome everybody. While we wait for more people to show up into the live stream here, I shall warm up. um, funny thing, you know, I don't generally comment on pop news, like the things that are going on pop wise, but uh, yesterday. According to local reports, the rapper Nicki Minaj was arrested at the local airport. Hey Ben, howdy, how you doing yourself? And she was trying to export a little bit of Amsterdam's finest to Manchester, England, which is interesting to me because from my understanding, Michael Watson in the house. Good evening. My understanding of what's going on in terms of the cannabis culture over there, that's sort of the equivalent of bringing sand to the beach. And you know, you're a rap star, a rock star. So for God's sake, certainly you've got a person who knows a person who can get it for you in the town you're in, as opposed to spending 5 to 6 hours in the pokey and paying a 350 euro fine. Is how that one ended up. But I thought it was funny. There's a local, I guess, delivery service here, and her and who else? A couple of artists come over and do these really, really cringy TV commercials for the delivery service. God, who else? I can see her face right now. I kissed a girl and I liked it. Her, Katy Perry. Her, Katy Perry, Nicki Minaj, Katy Perry, a bunch of them come over. They all have this one thing in common. They're not young. But I digress. Hey, welcome. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the chat. How are you doing? Now, my eye is still not doing great. It is not as swollen as it was, but the sight is not so great. So, Mr. Blades, I want to let you know I appreciate it. That first that you showed up. I want you guys to know that if I read incorrectly tonight, it's a vision thing. Um, but I found that funny. I just, I just don't understand. It gets into a whole nother deeper discussion when it comes to these rappers, but I really just don't understand, some of the things that they do, especially in this day and age. And coming here to Amsterdam, yeah, they're gonna check you coming in and out, whether you know it or not. They're very clear on that. Um, I thought that was hilarious. Well, how many folks we got here? Hey, Phineas Shaw in the house. How you doing, sir? You know, so yeah, have a good time in Amsterdam. But what happens in Amsterdam and sold in Amsterdam, generally, I advise you to keep it in Amsterdam. Is my best advice to you, young and old. Or there's the option of staying away from it at all, which is always the best option, I think. That's funny. That's funny stuff. Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I want to talk about something tonight. The title of this live stream is "This Yamaha Set Epiphone, Hold My Beer." Um, To spoil the lead here, I have a video on my regular channel out where I did the unboxing for this month of the guitars that came through. So if you haven't had the chance, please go check that out. If you were checking out when it first showed, for some reason I had quite a few viewers watching it when it first premiered, and none of them got counted to my stream. YouTube does funny stuff like that sometimes. So if you've already watched it, watch it again. I'd appreciate it. It does help a great deal, and don't forget to hit the like. But a great unboxing this month. I almost had a heart attack about it, fellas. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was over a week late. It was about 10 days late. And the last 3 days, they kept giving me a time slot, and then I I have to hang around. I have to be here to receive that. It's not something that you want to leave on the doorstep. So they would count, and then the day would end, and they cancel it, and then the next day would they did this for 3 days, for 2 days, and then on the third day is they set a time, and it actually showed up, but not the first time. It took a few hours. So 2.5 days basically just staying around, waiting for it to show up, but it did. Thankfully, there is that. We had a weekend here, a Monday holiday, and when you have a Monday holiday in the beginning of the week, you can forget about the rest of the week in terms of getting anything. I have learned that. Yeah, but came in one piece. Everything in tip-top working condition. No issues whatsoever. I have certainly plugged them in and run them through some minor paces. No issues with electronics, nothing. But so I want to talk about the Yamaha that came in that video today in a broader context, actually, to try to make a broader point, one that I've been making for a while here. And you'll excuse me if I keep hammering on that nail. You'll indulge me tonight. But I do want to make a point here. And again, so boys and girls, gather around, gather around. Get your favorite libation ready and prepared, whether it's the morning you're having coffee or the evening you're having whiskey, or in my case, I'm drinking a smoothie. I find that these days drinking a lot of smoothies is good for me. Ben Henshaw, Yamaha and LTD grassroots should be contracted by Gibson. Lo, their LPs are almost perfect. Now let's talk about that in some great detail tonight. Yeah, we're gonna go back. Um, you know, I said purposely this Yamaha said Epiphone, hold my beer. I want to start this off by giving my true opinion on almost all, and there'll be some caveats, which I will mention in tonight's live stream. Um, to that statement, almost all of the Japanese Les Paul copies, let's just stick to the Les Paul copies. We won't get into the casinos or the 335s or the SGs. Let's just stick with the Les Pauls. In general, I would say that with two exceptions, no, they are not going to be as great as a Les Paul USA, as some people will purport. So it wasn't, I didn't say this, Yamaha said Gibson hold my beer, as some people would say. There's a very slim amount of the Epiphones uh, or any of the other Japanese Les Paul copies that I think could stand up to Gibsons. And we will talk about those, and they just happen to be in tonight's discussion. But I just want to get that out of the way. Now, however, when it comes to current Les Epiphones, Les Pauls, I have a lot to say. I have a lot to say. But let's go back, because I think that there's a lot of clouds. I like to try to, on these live streams, clear up a little bit of the myth, a little bit of the backstage talk,
the Chinese whispering that goes on over the years regarding some of these guitars. Orville by Gibson were guitars produced in Japan between 1992. Okay, I want to keep these dates in mind because there's a, what do you call this? There's a kind of a timeline to this. 1992 to 1995. So that's a 3-year period. I want to, it seems like that the period of time that these were produced was a lot longer when you read the internets, but no, it was a 3-year period from 92 to 95. Now, uh, I'll start off with these tonight in this discussion because I want to get them out of the way. These are the guitars that I think rival Gibson USA's, but not all of them. Not all of them. Now, the top level Orville by Gibsons had fret binding. They had 57 Classics pickups in it, and they sported a long tenon under that neck pickup. Which, if you're a Tonewood person, or not even that, that's unfair. If you're a historic person, if you're looking into aspects of the build that are closer to the historic build, i.e., the 1959 Les Paul, that these things are all the copies and the Gibsons are all based on. Anyway, and I always said Gibsons are copies of a copy, but anyway, I digress. But these are pretty impressive. Now, the Orvilles were made by two companies. And they're two companies that I think by now in our discussions you guys should be familiar with, Teruta and Fujigen. These were, and this is not a minor point why I keep bringing up these Japanese manufacturers, Teruta. Again, we talked about it before regarding the Yamahas. And we talked about Fujigen in regards to Epiphones and other guitars. These guys were the producers, and keep in mind this period from the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, where these were the dominant builders of just about everybody's stuff. The Squires, the Epiphones, a lot of the Yamahas, a lot of that stuff. So these guys, they had in their collection 50, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60s. They had a whole collection of original instruments that they were making their measurements off. And they were deciding, I think, this is speculation, depending upon the models, which of aspects of the originals that for manufacturing cost sake that they could use, and which ones at a certain price point they could use, and which ones at a lower price point they could use. In other words, at the higher up you got, of course, the more closer you got to that original. That's just a speculation of mine. It doesn't always pan out. It won't, and but I do believe that that was kind of their thinking. The Japanese always get copies, go out, they buy the originals, and they study them, every aspect of them, and get to know them very well. That's why they make, and sometimes make improvements. Well, this could be a little bit better. The transistor radio, of course, being a good example of that. Now, uh, generally, these had maple tops. Not, by the way, these are not the same maples and not the same mahoganies. I pointed out before, even with the top line Orville by Gibson. African mahogany is generally used in Gibson USA's, and in Asia, it's usually Asian mahogany. The tops generally, that the quality of those really are very similar, in my opinion. It really comes down to the mahoganies that are used, the big difference, but not enough. Again, like I said, I'm not a Tonewood guy, and so there is where you would find a kind of hidden aspect of these guitars that are not historic, but it's a hair. I'm splitting hairs there. Now there was the K, J, and G series in this. The K were the entry models. They usually had a little white sticker on the back of the headstock that's a K on it. And these K series Orville by Gibsons are they have veneer tops. Um, they don't have solid maple tops. They have imitation perloid trapezoid inlays. Um, the electronics aren't very good. The next is the J series. Now, these are the decent ones. If you can find a J series one at a reasonable price, these are decent. They had a true ABR bridge on them with the studs in the wood, in the body, not in studs, not the post. I'm sorry, the post going into the body. Okay, that's the wrong move to make. The post. Sorry, guys. The post go into the body directly, not into studs. That's a true ABR bridge, ABR1 bridge, and these had those. They sported the historic headstock, so the 61 headstock, just like on the Yamaha Studio Lord 700, has the 61 historic headstock. These sported that headstock. That's another thing to keep in mind as well, because a lot of people out there will talk about the headstocks, and we're going to talk about them too. Phineas. Okay, I see what you're saying. The grassroots Les Paul I had was not built the same, but they played better than a Gibson LP to me. No, I'm not saying that at all. let me finish. Let me finish. No, that's not my point at all. Quite au contraire, mon frère. Let me go on. So, and then you got to the G series. And the G series pickups were 57 classics or 490 T and R. They had fret nibs. In other words, there was binding up and down on the neck, up to the frets, as you would find on a USA. And the body was sprayed in nitro. Now, here is where it starts to get a little confusing. Now, you notice that I talked about the Orville by Gibson having the KJ and G series to them. And by the way, the G series, of course, you had the top woods. And again, the mahogany, to Phineas's point, the mahogany is again probably the same as the grassroots, but I'm not a tone wood guy, and to me, I can't really find a difference. It's the same mahogany you'll find on the back of neck, on the backs and the necks of Epiphones. So really nothing there, but I merely pointed out because people will. Now, Teruta and Fudigan stopped producing these, as I said, in 1995. So 92 to 95, you had the K, J, and G series. The G series being the ones that were as close to a USA with the standard headstock, by the way, true ABR bridge, got a little carve to the top, binding fret nibs on the neck, the whole nine. 57 classic pickups. So this thing or 490s, depending upon the model. If it was the 490s, it would be uncovered. If it was the 57s, it'd be the covered one. So if you ever run across one, that's how you would know the difference in terms of pickups. But this is the one that everybody talks about. This is the guitar, Orville by Gibson, that really rivals the USA models. And the prices reflect that. These things are going for 18 on up, 1800 US and up, and up. Are they all great? Probably with the Japanese build, you got a better chance of them all being the majority of them being great. So there's that too, if you're wondering. Now after Teruta and Fuji again, I'm sorry guys for this history lesson, but it's important to the point I'm trying to make tonight. I think you'll find it interesting at the very least. And also when you're out there looking at these, if you've ever come across it, again, a little knowledge goes a long way, and you can say, hey, that's what Mike was talking about. Now after 95, and Teruta and Fujigen stopped producing these guitars. um, Actually, Fujigen stopped. Teruta, there's a little bit of haziness. Like I said, there's haziness there, but one or both of them stopped it. One at least of these continued to produce them, but they changed the name to the Elite and the Elitist. And the Elite uh, and the Elitist line um, were sort of taking the K, which is the entry level, and the G, which is the top level, completely excluding the J series in the old Orville by Gibson line, and coming out with the Elite, which was a Japan only guitar, and the Elitist, which was an export only guitar. And it's very important. If you ever see somebody selling you one of these on Reverb and they say, hey, I've got an Elite, make sure it's not an Elitist. Mostly you'll know by the headstock, because the elitist headstock actually had the Epiphone headstock of that time period. You guys are familiar with that, the old OG, headstock. They've changed so many times; it's hard to keep track. But the elitist, the elitist was export with the standard Epiphone headstock. The elite, those are the ones that again retain the Gibson pickups, nitro spray, and ABR1, and the standard headstock. The standard headstock. So now the other of all of these that I've mentioned, the K, the J, and the G series, the elite, the elitist. I'm sorry, the K, the J, and the elitist. These were all had a poly base with a nitro clear coat. So, which is one of the reasons why they kind of hold their looks over time as opposed to the ones that are just nitro. To find an elite that's in excellent condition is a hard thing to do, but they are out there. Now, what's my point tonight? Why all that long preamble? Well, first of all, I got an hour or so of time I got to burn up, so I got to talk about something. Second of all, there is a broader point here. That is old versus new. Old versus new. Now, when the title of this is "This Yamaha Said Epiphone Hold My Beer," it was the old Yamahas saying to the new Epiphones, "Hold my beer, hold my beer." And why do I say that? Let's talk about the Yamahas. Let's talk about particularly the one I got in yesterday. The Yamahas in the 1970s, the Studio Lords, which I have right here. So here we have the Yamaha Studio Lord 700 from 1979. These are constructed with solid tops, solid maple tops. There's 3-piece in this case, mahogany back and neck, with the 61 reissue headstock. And remember, I talked about that. Some of the Orville by Gibsons have the 61 reissue headstock. Some of them have the standard headstock, interesting. But these guitars, in a lot of ways, were built again to rival their Gibson counterparts at a time
when Gibson was not considered to be great for a lot of reasons. I won't. We've gotten into those before, and they kick butt, especially this 700. Once you got into the 700s in this, you were talking about some real quality in terms of the build quality. Long neck tenon, Al nickel 2 pickups in this. After 40, what was that, 45 years old this thing is, everything is original on it and it still holds up, still sounds great. Now, that was the 70s. Then there was a period of time where they came out with the Studio Lords 450 series. Now a lot of these are Studio Lords, but they have bolt-on necks, and I don't understand how you can go from the older 70s Studio Lords that didn't have, none of them had this, no, none of them had bolt-on necks. I don't even think the 400, 600, 700, and 800, I don't think they had bolt-on. Well, the 800 was a custom. None of them had bolt-on necks. And then eventually, in the period from around 1980 until around 82, 83, they were producing these 450s, and some of them had bolt-on necks, some of them didn't. And that gets the water's a little muddy on the Studio Lords. What everybody says is that the guitars that, so they could, then they cut that line out completely. Sound familiar? It's just like with the Epiphones. They cut that line out completely and they concentrated on their Lord Player series. And this started in March of 1984. And records show on the internet that this continued on to 1985. The example that I have with the Yamaha data checking, it puts it in at October. It was constructed, at least the neck was constructed in October of 1985. And I think now, again, we're talking about a period of 84 to 85, 86-ish, maybe early 86 that they were producing these. This is still a full, what is that? This is still a full 7 years before Epiphone, through Teruta and Fujigen, started producing their Orville by Gibsons. So the Yamahas precede these by 7 years. That's why I said these dates are important to keep in mind. And having had this Yamaha Lord Player here, and looking at it and knowing the G series of the Orville by Gibsons and even the others as well, I understand that the guys at Yamaha were well ahead of their time. Now, I didn't mention, and I should mention, did I mention it? Oh, that the G series line of the Orville by Gibsons were not inexpensive. They were going for about Ju Nima Gosen yen, which is about, well, it's 10,500 basically yen. And as I told you before, in the case of this Studio Lord, you can see there's 700. 700 designates the price. So this guitar was 70,000 yen, and the top series, the top of the line elitist G series guitars were going for 12,500. Okay, so almost twice as much. So that's something to keep in mind. And by the way, if you look there, and yeah, you can see that there, that this is not an uncommon thing in these to have the true ABR. So this is the post going into the wood on this guitar. So, which is considered to be a
Premium. Premium. I remind you that you don't even get that with the Gibson USA models. You do not get the post in the wood like that. A true ABR with any of the Gibson USA models. You have to get into the true historics, the older true historics, and then into the custom shop stuff in order to get that feature. That's a premium feature. Um, as well as the long neck tenon. Again, these are things that make it closer to what they're basing off the 59. All right, enough of that. Let me show you this. So, how many people we got watching here? Great. So we got 8 people watching, but 4 likes. If you guys haven't done so already, don't forget to do it. Hit the like button. No, I'm being a little long-winded here tonight, but I think this is great information because, quite frankly, uh, that I have I'm one of the few guys that actually have these guitars and doing a live stream on talking about it. That this is possible. So this is actually a good thing to have 2 of these in the same room because I can go back to the early 70s Lord player, I'm sorry, Studio Lords, and then I can show you this. So this is the 1985 Lord player. This is a Lord player. And by the way, in excellent condition. So there's a little bit of a chip here in the nut, but it's not affecting the playing of it. And the seller actually gave me a bone nut that's already slotted if I wanted. It's just really great. He was going to do it, but he never got around to it. I want you to look at the inlays on this. You can see that this is actually true mother of pearl inlay. This is actually real mother of pearl inlay in this rosewood neck. True ABR1 bridge there, so the posts are going directly into the wood, just like the older models. This one has a little bit more of a top carve to it. In other words, the carve is as you would find on a historic Les Paul and the Gibson Les Pauls as well. So it's got a body, it's got a top carve to it. Interestingly enough, the older Yamaha Studio Lords doesn't have as much of a carve in the top as this one. I didn't even mention it, but again, it's got the standard headstock to it. So that is the USA Gibson standard headstock. By the way, the one that you're paying a premium for now with Epiphone. I want you to keep that in mind. And the ABR, which by the way, you're not getting in the Epiphone. Hell, you're not getting in the USA unless you start getting into older ones and custom shop level. Dig that. Dig that. This guitar has, and by the way, we talked about this, the Studio Lord 700, that's not a Mayan. This is the 400. So this is actually cheaper than the Studio Lord over here in terms of price. This is 40,000 yen as opposed to the 79 over here, which is 70,000 yen, which again opposed to the Orville by Gibson's, which were 12,500 yen. Keep those numbers in mind. This one right here is 1/3 the price of an Orville by Gibson. But again, much like the Orville by Gibson, you're getting that Gibson headstock, getting a true ABR. The pickups in this, whereas they are not 490 or 57 Classics, both pickups that I am very familiar with, I would say that these Alnico 5 pickups are very, 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 very good on their own, very comparative to the 490 R and T. And by the way, these are, are some really articulate pickups like the 490 R and 490 T, which by the way, as you know, I like very much. It's just the Alnico 5 pickups. They really, I don't, I like Alnico 3s as you were the, But the fives, every time I come across a guitar with Alnico 5 pickups in it, I'm reminded, yeah, I like those. Alnico 2's like over here in the Studio Lord. Yeah, it's all right, but it's really something to the Alnico 5 and 3, of course, as you know, I like. Well, at least in the case of these dry Z's, that do it for me. And this guitar came with those. Now, so think about that. For 1/3 of the price of those later, starting in '92, seven years later, after this guitar stopped being produced, they started coming out with those Orville by Gibson guitars, which, for all intents and purposes, that's what this is. Okay, for 1/3 the price at that time. 7 years later, I know the inflation did not make it that much more expensive to produce. Now, if it's the headstock thing that you're into, well, there you go. You've got it. It says Yamaha. That's not a crappy name. It's not like Stoner. I had a Stoner, which, by the way, if I were to compare this with the Stoner, as you know, that Stoner was really well made. It was also made in Japan, but this is a better guitar than that for a couple of reasons. But along the same lines, very well built guitars again. But that Stoner was about Jude Imayen. Again, this one, well, that's in modern day prices. I don't know if that's fair or not. But anyway, I find that fascinating. So my point tonight is old versus new. It's not Phineas really about the builds per se, other than to point out that for the same amount of money, for less amount of money, if you dig around, you can find some that are as a good a build, even amongst the Japanese ones, and even the ones that aren't really easy to find. Like the G series Orville by Gibsons are very hard to find. I look for them all the time, and when I find them, believe even in Japan, because those guys know it by now, and they're hip to that. They charge an exorbitant price for them, especially if they're in good condition. Whereas these Yamaha Lord players are as rare as hen's teeth, because as I said before, these were only produced between 1984, early 86. These are even harder to find. There's 400, and then there's the 500. There's the 400, the 500, and the 1,000. Now, the 1,000 is a mythical beast. I've never seen one in photographs but I have heard of it in their listing. That would be the one that would be the equivalent of their G series that came 7 years later. That has fret nibs, doesn't have Gibson pickups, but it has very, very, very nice Alnico 3, I believe, is what it's listed as. Again, I've never seen a picture. I've only seen the listings of it. Pickups it, I believe I read. So the 400, the 500, and then the 1,000 in this series from 1984, March of 84 until January, February, I would say about 86. This is October of 85. So we knew at least by that time, later 85, they were still producing these. There have been some dated with an 86 on it as well. So, but early 86. So that's how we know that. Old versus new. Old versus new. See, you would go to your dealer now and you would say, hey, I'm going to get one of those new inspired by Gibson Epiphones, going for $1,200 and up. Because they came out with that Gibson standard headstock on it. Ain't that cool? This one's got the Gibson standard headstock on it. Doesn't say Epiphone, but that doesn't say Gibson. So does it really matter at that point? Yamaha is a respectable name, right? It's got the cool factor on it because it's 45. This guitar was made when my first freshman year of college. In October 1985, I was a freshman in college. This guitar has held up a hell of a lot better than me in that time. I mean, look at this thing. It doesn't have barely a scratch, barely a nick in it. The only thing is that chip in the nut here, and it's not really that serious of a thing. And I'm contemplating whether or not to change it. I might just keep that bone nut for something else because I think this is okay. But guess what? You're not getting a true ABR1 bridge with that inspired by Gibson Epiphone. Hell, like I said again, you're not getting it with the USA standards either. This is a three-piece maple top, solid maple top. You're not getting that again. It's three pieces, 1, 2, 3, which it seems to be because the Studio Lord is also a three-piece top. Not getting that for $12.99 and up. You're not getting it at this price. You're not getting it at that price. You're not getting it at all with the $12.99 Epiphone. Phineas, I feel the same way about a Matsumoto guitar. He passed away, recently. They even come from out now they cost when you find them different video. Yeah. The Matsumotos are cool too. Those are great. Absolutely, and I do look for them. I've run across them. I may buy one for myself and just put it away in my next trip to Japan. It's one of those guitars that now that the master has passed away, I'm seriously considering. But a lot of stuff here, a lot of meat on this bone at a fraction of the price is the point of this. Old versus new. I am never a fan of unnecessarily producing these guitars because you can't turn the lights off. We've set this monster in motion, and damn it, it's got to be fed. Regardless. Matty Two Hats in the house, sir. Welcome. How you doing, man? Old versus new, and like I said again, long neck tenon. I do believe that those do have long. Yeah, they do. So you got that on the Epiphone if that's something important to you. No, you don't have the Gibson USA pickups, but I would stack these vintage Nickel 5s, Yamahas from '85 against the mass-produced ones from Gibson any day of the week because they were well thought out and they are great sounding pickups. I'm not lying. I like the pickups in this better than I like the pickups in the Studio Lord. That's true. None of them, including these, have binding on the fret nibs, which is interestingly enough, as I pointed out before, not something that I particularly am fond of. I prefer this for a lot of reasons. Thank you, Maddie. I appreciate it. Interesting enough, now that I'm on the subject, I was talking about the real mother of pearl inlay. You can see the difference between that and the acrylic inlays that they used on this 700 from '79. And this is a more expensive guitar in terms of yen. And it doesn't even have true mother of pearl inlays, trapezoid inlays like this guitar has. And by the way, and they've aged so nicely. They've got that beautiful sheen to it. Can you guys see that? Is that picking up? They've got that beautiful sheen to it that real mother of pearl gets after time. And probably a few small. Nah, this has never been in a smoky bar. This has been well kept, but just aged very well and beautiful. You're not getting that even on the Inspired by Gibson line. You're getting Again, like I said, a little bit better quality, like the later Epiphone inlays starting in Korea, but you're still getting, synthetic. You're not getting the real deal. This has the real deal. This is a real, okay? So that's a premium feature to me because that's a look thing. I like the looks of it. Looks very nice. So for a lot less money, guys, yeah, agreed. I will say to you, yes, these are very difficult. This is the 400, and by the way, I have a 500 on its way. Yes, we're also going to take a look at the Lord Player 500 here coming up. We'll compare the two of them. The difference between the two of these is the body material. Honestly, this is listed as agathis, not mahogany. The neck is mahogany. It's got a mahogany neck, but there is a little bit of a, I'm, that's the price point difference between the 400 and the 500 is the body is made of agathis, and on the 400 and on the 500, it's made of mahogany. But even that is not clear because there are 400s that have mahogany backs as well that are discussed and listed. So maybe something happened there in the production between 84 and 86, maybe in 85 they changed. I don't know.
Just looking at it and the weight of it, I'll have I'll have Fern take a look at it. It could be Akathis still, um, but it could be mahogany. But that was the price.
That was the only difference in terms of the build between the 400 and the 500. When I have the 500 in, I can look at them, I can tell. But not a big deal. That's a common body material. It's actually considered to be a premium at that time and not heavy. This comes in a lot lighter than the Studio Lord 700 that I have here. There's about a pound. There's about almost a pound's difference, around a pound's difference between these two guitars. This is not heavy at all. And agathis, by the way, is known as a heavy wood. So I don't see that as being something that's true at all. That's why I'm a little curious as to whether this really is. Doesn't matter. It's a ringer. And for, again, a guitar that was made when I was trying to figure my way through freshman year in college, it's looking good. It's looking gorgeous. And another thing that happens with these older Yamahas is you'll start getting cracks, usually right here in the middle of the pickup rings. That's true of geckos. A lot of them get cracks in the pickup rings. A lot of it has to do with setting of the top sinking and stuff like that. But as you can see, that's not an issue on this one or the older Studio Lord over here. But all the plastics, everything is in excellent condition. Very well made guitars for a lot less money. It's interesting that you could get a Lord Player in 1984 to 86 ish that, in my opinion, holds up with the best of or the 400, the 500, or the 1,000. You get if you could find the 1,000. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to be on the surface. It's like it's my Bigfoot. It's my Loch Ness monster now. I'm going to find the 1,000. I got a 500. I'm just having my agent make sure that it doesn't have any trust fraud issue. It's things like that, the hidden things that you have to be careful. This one is fine. Needs a slight adjustment and it's ready to rock and roll. But more I can say for myself. Anyway, I digress. But I'm gonna find that 1,000. That's my mythical creature that I've got to see if it really is. I've got to find one. And if anyone can find it between me and my guy in Osaka, I think we can find it. Because I feel I think, I don't like I feel, I think that's probably going to be your G series equivalent, or it's going to be a custom, one of the two. The 500, again, like I said, is built exactly the same way as this 400 here, with the difference being the body being mahogany or agathis. Again, looking at this could be agathis. Looking at the mahogany neck, the grains are a little bit different. So yeah, there's a little something there. Again, we'll have a 500 here, and we will see. But for a little bit of money, guys, look at what you've got here. You've got better features on this thing, and believe me, this will sell for a lot less, by the way, than the inspired by Gibson's will, Epiphones will as well. It's still not, you can get them for cheaper than those. And you're getting more guitar. It's got a solid top. It's not a veneer. It's got a poly coat with a nitro finish, clear coat on it. It's got a true ABR post in the wood bridge. It's got real mother of pearl trapezoidal inlays. It's got a carve to the body, just like a 57. I'm sorry, 58, 59. These older ones are the way to go. And I keep preaching that, and I'm glad I have a couple examples here to show you as to why I really believe that. I'm really becoming the anti-new guitar guy in some ways. In some ways. There's some new ones like the Squire line, like I said, that I do like. I have one sitting right here in its case. The Telecaster, and then I've got the two Squire Strats in the shop on consignment sale. Well, somebody will buy it. It's this shop on anyway. They're sitting in the window of a shop of a jewelry store, and they look nice. Every time I get a chance to go by and look at them, I'm like, holy crap, those are two nice Strats in the window. And I'm sure somebody's seen with the summer season picking up will think so as well, and those would be off. But the Telecaster Squire I'm keeping because I think it's great. I think it's a great guitar. That's a modern one. Nothing else that really interests me modern-wise. But there are a lot of advantage to reaching back and finding some of these older models, at least knowing about them and making an educated decision for your wallet's sake. I'll tell you something, man. If you roll up this set with a nice 85 like this Studio Lord that's got the standard headstock, got the true ABR, and you plug it in, and your buddies are all going to say, hey, that's cool. What's that? You know. And you will break it down and explain it to them, hopefully in a shorter amount of time than I did tonight. The history of it and why you picked it up when you were looking at the more expensive Epiphone, because you get far more guitar for the money. Far more guitar. It's not a veneer again. Can I say that again? You know, then this is cosmetic to me. This is not a tone wood thing. But this is a cosmetic thing to me. That's proper to me, you know. To have a solid top. It's the three-piece top, but you know, so are a lot of Gibsons back in the day, what this is based on from that time period. Pancake bodies too, you know. So, and then of course, the Studio Lord, the 79 Studio Lord, speaking of the body material, that's mahogany, the body and neck. But because of the paint job, I can't really look at it and compare. I'm trying to see, you know, if I can see grains and that match up that looks similar. I'm sure it is Agathis, but it again has a lot of things going forward for the money. And I think that it's a far, far, far better investment of your money to look for one of these older models than buying the newer ones. You know, a little bit of knowledge, like I said, goes a long way, even if you're not looking for it. If you come across it, sometimes you're out just, you know, mind your own business, and one whistles at you from the corner and says, "Hey, sailor," you know, you never know. but at least you recognize what it is. Hey, I know what that is. And you may see that the person selling it doesn't. And it may be something that you might want to make a move on. Again, a little knowledge goes a long way. Maddie, two hats. Cruise Maniac Sound are one to check out too. Japanese and super high stuff to rival Gibson Custom Shop. Yeah, I will check them out. But again, if a lot of people will, that's a custom build and it's a stoner. I don't know that name, but Yamaha. Again, one of the reasons that Yamaha isn't played a great deal is because it's not one of the classic rock. It doesn't have its roots in classic rock like Fender and Gibson does. It doesn't. It does have its history steeped in 70s folk, which is where, in the acoustic end, which is where they really are their meat and potatoes for the most part, with Yamahas. But in terms of their electrics, they, imagine if they, started copying Gibson's a little bit earlier in the 50s instead of the 60s instead of the 70s. Maybe they would have been a part of it. Maybe Jimmy Page would have said, hell, this Yamaha Les Paul copy is as good as the, 59. You never know. And then that'd have been a whole different story. But just something to think about. You're getting, so that's the reason why Yamahas are well known, but it's still a known name. So to have the Yamaha moniker on the headstock, that's got some cachet, again, in certain circles, if that's important to you. So there's a whole lot going there for everybody. Something for everyone. The Tonewood snobs, the headstock junkies, Tonewood snobs, headstock junkies, and everybody else in between. And and it's good for your wallet. It's good for your wallet. I'm sold. I'm with the exception of the Fred nibs. This is for all intents and purposes. It's got the. I always talk about gravitas. When you hold something in the hand, of course it's age. It's got some age, so that does bring something to it. But the gravitas of this guitar is and the feel of it. It's a solid top. It feels like that's that thing that you get with Gibsons. And a big important part of it. And rosewood fretboard, of course. But again, a beautiful rosewood fretboard, beautiful piece. Not as beautiful as the older Studiolord 700, but then there's about 7 years difference between that 79 and this 85. I'm sorry, 6 years difference. So it's got 6 years on it in terms of aging. That's an interesting thing too, to see over time, how aging affects woods. I've noticed that rosewoods have a tendency to get darker. Of course, there's a lot of gunk in there. Even if you clean it, they get darker. And true mother of pearl really ages beautifully as well. And yet again, so tonight really is about reaching back and looking at, I thought I'd have a little bit more people from the States tonight. It's right, Memorial Day is tomorrow. Everybody's on holiday. That's all right. If you watch this live, if you watch this in the rerun, catch up on it. I appreciate all you Memorial Day guys. And by the way, happy Memorial Day to you guys. But, for your wallet's sake, man, and for your happiness sake. I don't know of anybody who wouldn't be happy rocking either one of these guitars because they are fine guitars. I've had a lot. I've had lots of lovely women. I've had a lot, as Joni Mitchell wrote. I've had a lot of Les Pauls go through my hands over the years, and this Lord player is the finest non-Gibson. I'm sorry, it's better than Epiphone. It's better than any Epiphone that I've had. It really is. I will say that.
It said, Epiphone, hold my beer. And again, for the money, look at what you're getting. All those things that I went through. That, those are the things that all of us, one or two of them, hold to be an important aspect of a Les Paul in terms of its construction. And you're getting it here for the fraction of the price of even the later, 7 years later or so, Orville by Gibson G series, or I'm sorry, J through G series.
And, K through G series. And just something to think about tonight, guys. Just something to think about. I can't wait to get that 500 in to compare the two of them, if it checks out. And I am Les Paul heavy now. I've got quite a few. I've got two Strats, a few less, several Les Pauls, and the Fender bass is a beauty. That 61. I don't have it here next to me. I didn't feel like lugging three guitars in this room tonight, but the metallic red 62 reissue Fender bass that came in with this Yamaha is a beauty. That it's got metallic flake in it, and it's just gorgeous, gorgeous. 2006, something like that. 2000, yeah, 2006. Beauty, beautiful bass guitar, just like the one last month. Beautiful. They fly. They go that. They. I immediately people say, "Hey, can you get another one of those?" And for good reason, because you can't get a really good one like that over here in Europe. I don't know how it is in the States, but over here in Europe, they're in high demand. And I found a great one, but again, a secondhand, and for a fraction of the price that you can get for what you'd be paying for. It's Do they even make those anymore in the States? I guess they do. Your Fender versions, by far, and you're getting a lot of bass or a lot of guitar for the buck. So again, guys, our motto on this channel is "I'm good." And in tonight's, in kind of context of that, tonight's discussion is I'm good on buying the Epiphones when I know there are Yamahas, for example, Grecos, or Love Rocks or things, or one of my Gibsons out there that I can get. Some of the one of my Gibsons I can get out there for a fraction. Like I said, stay away from the K series. It's the J's you're looking for. And really saving my wallet a lot of duress, a lot of stress, and something that I could really be happy to own, and knowing the quality of it, knowing the quality of the build, the quality of the materials, and the durability of it. You know, yeah, it's just really something. And so consider it, as always. I ask you guys to consider tonight's discussion. Um, Tractor trailer per shift, 3 shifts a day at the factories in Indonesia that make guitars. A lot of wood, a lot of trees, a lot of guitars that are being made that go unsold. The new guitar sales market right now is in a dip. Things are slowing down, they're not moving. And the push to produce more seems a little, almost, ridiculous. Especially again, like I said, when there are better alternatives out there in the secondhand markets. You got to dig a little bit. You got to go on a guitar safari. But when you beat the bush and you find a good one, you're happy with it. Or find somebody like me who knows how to beat the bushes. Hire yourself the guide to guide you, help navigate you through it. and you'll probably be a happier man. And even tipping your guide, you'll come out a lot cheaper and a lot better off. So that's my thoughts on this subject. This Yamaha said Epiphone, hold my beer. Um, I want to thank you guys for supporting me. Everybody who watches this live stream, everybody who comes here in the chat and faithfully when they can and support this channel by just letting me know you're there. This channel really is trying to expand and grow with quality information. You know, like I said, I hope tonight's discussion about the studio lures cleared up a lot of myths regarding them, if you knew any, and also cleared up a lot of the BS and that marketing that Gibson is doing through Epiphone these days in terms of their pricing. There's no way. There's no way in God's green earth that I would buy inspired by Gibson Epiphone before I went out and looked for one of these Yamahas. I wouldn't do it. You know, I wouldn't do it. Especially sitting here and look, you guys have seen them. Would you do it? Knowing what you know about the build qualities on these verses, the inspired by line Epiphones? You know, we go down the checklist, and I do believe that this one comes out on top on the check side, not the minus sides. So I hope this information, this channel is based upon breaking through a lot of myths, bringing you the real deal when possible, and discussing it and putting it out there so that future people, when they look at it, can say, hey, okay, I can make decisions based upon this information as opposed to the constant barrage of, you know, gotta get one, buy one, get one, you know, that we get on YouTube. You know, I'm encouraging the secondary market for a multitude of reasons. For the ecological reasons, first and foremost. Secondly, for the I'm good culture. I'm not going to spend that kind. I'm good on it. I'm not going to spend that kind of money on Inspired by Epiphone when I can get a studio Lord or a Lord player for a fraction of the price. It's a better guitar structurally, and thus therefore probably in every other way as well. Something to think about, guys. It's what I do. It's one of the benefits of importing these things in is that they come through, and I'm happy. I'm glad that I did because now I know. You know, I've held them, and so I have a very educated opinion on them. They're great. And it's not just because I'm trying to sell them or that I sell them, I import them, but they really are. If there was knocks that I could make on them, I would share those with you. I'd knock on the expensive studio Lord from, which is more expensive than the Lord player. But why couldn't you use the real, mother of pearl like you did later on? For a cheaper guitar. See, those are things that I wonder about. But anyway, there's that. Check out the regular content on this channel. I released a video today unboxing not just this Lord Player 400, but also the before mentioned Fender 62 reissue. You check that out. See my cat Eddie ruining my shot and meowing in the back very loudly. When I started filming that, it was a bright day. Set the cameras up, lighting looked good. Turned the cameras on, sat down, and it just got really dark all of a sudden. That's been the weather here in Amsterdam for the last few days. It's just up and down. So it was a little darker when I was doing the edit on it. But for some reason, I'm darker, but the guitars you can see clearly. I hope that's not some, like
paranormal type shit. But at least you can see the guitars very well. Wasn't happy about the lighting there, but anyway, check that out if you can, if you will, if you please. Um, Go over to Bandcamp, check out the Asanoki album that I have released. Asanoki 1 and 2, they're both there. Bandcamp.com. Asanoki, Mike McWilliams, producer. Um, and I will see you guys again. I'm going to try to do a deep dive into the two Yamahas as the next content. Um, just going over a few of the things that I touched in a shorter amount of time that I touched upon tonight. So you can have that to look forward to. Until the next one, you guys, please do take care of yourselves. Have a great week. God bless each and every one of you, and see you guys soon. Bye bye.